Who's that?
Unknown caller. I'm not getting that.
Why isn't she answering?
Did you pick what movie we're seeing?
Yeah, we're going scary. Scream.
The Wes Craven flick from 96?
No, they made a new one. This is like the 5th Scream.
Why don't you just call it Scream 5? I mean, just turn a yes into a 5. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, great idea. Then they'll call it 5 Cream. Real scary there.
I don't understand why they continue to title these films the same titles that they were whenever they came out originally. I mean, they're reboots, not remakes. If I can count on one franchise to deconstruct a genre instead of build onto them, it should be the Scream movies.
You need to get that?
No, it's a...
Are you sure? You know, it's important to have that extended warranty.
Oh my god. Does no one answer their phone these days?
We have to read back to determine that it's close. Right?
We went.
I swear if one more person doesn't answer me tonight.
Hello?
Finally.
Who dis?
Me.
Are you a spam?
Welcome to Tavern Talk. I'm Kerri Michael.
And I'm Johnnie Brannon.
And we are co-directors of the Made in Arkansas Film Festival. And we do a few other things as well.
Yeah, actually we are currently in pre-production for a film that I'm about to direct that Kerri's producing and has written. It's called The Book Club. And we also, like she said, we do the Made in Arkansas Film Festival, and that will be coming up this May. So please submit your films to the festival. If you're a Arkansas filmmaker, if you're a regional filmmaker, if you're outside the state, or if you're an Arkansan that's living away from Arkansas and you're making films, we definitely want you to submit. And you can find that on Film Freeway.
So we are super excited to be here this evening to talk about Scream. We've just seen the new Scream. What are we calling it? A requel? A sequel?
Sequel. Has to be a sequel. Yes, this is the, I think, 5th installment of Scream. We were talking earlier, and I had seen the original at the theater back in 1996, and I was 24 years old. I just turned 24, and one of my close friends, and he was on a date, and we saw it in the theater, and I just remember how at that time in the mid-90s, the horror films in general just kind of took a dive until Scream kind of revitalized that. And it was really neat because after that, of course, came I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legends and all those other films at that time. And it was just neat to kind of be a part of that. Kerri, let's talk about Scream.
Let's talk about Scream. I would like to point out that when I saw the original, I was today years old and streamed it in my living room. So, I didn't follow the franchise. And we were talking about this a little earlier, like it was part of, a really kicked off, a whole, just like when, I guess it was Friday the 13th. No, it was Halloween that sort of kicked off in the 70s, this whole big, everybody's got to make one of these now. And Scream did that in the 90s. There was a whole spate of these, 90s slasher films, and I studiously avoided them like the English period piece snob that I was. Oh, do you need help with your bags? But this version of Scream, like the original, is a ton of fun. I mean, it really, I think that's part of why it took off, is it really is a fun, really self-aware, always.
Yeah, I think this version of Scream, which, like you just said, is it a sequel or is it a prequel, or I just found this interesting that this kind of stuck with the same, same recipe that the original had. It wasn't gritty, you know. It had that clean look, like a studio film. But like you said, it was fun. You know, I think it's made to be fun. And, like let's compare it to the Halloween that came out a few months ago. That had a little bit of a grittier feel.
Evil dies tonight!
You know, and it kind of tried to capture that original feel to that. Well, this is the same thing. This, totally captures the whole atmosphere of the original Scream. And, like she said, we watched it literally 6:30. The credits were rolling. We're like, okay, we got to go to the, get to the tavern. So that's how, it's fresh in our head. And what's so funny about this is that, Kerri, you haven't seen 2, 3, 4.
I have not.
So you haven't seen any of those. And I was trying to catch her up on the way here about kind of what happened to those.
I feel like this one caught me up pretty well. This is a film that loves to talk about itself.
It really does, and not knowing what to expect, because the reviews that's going out right now it's getting very positive reviews, at least from what I've seen. And but I was really curious on what twist they were going to incorporate into this film, because each Scream kind of has something that's like the big twist at the end. We're not going to do any spoilers, we're trying to keep it spoiler free, but it had a really interesting twist to it. I thought it was a little predictable. I won't say what part of it was, but there was a piece of it that was kind of predictable.
I'm not going to say.
I'm not going to say
some of it was really
what
predictable.
Part of the film was, but it was easy to say, oh, that's because of that, and that's going to happen because of that. That's what I meant.
I'm not going to tell you, but when you see it, you're going to be like, yeah, that's the thing.
That's the thing. If you go in and you sit in the theater and you're like, oh, that's the thing because of the thing, then it's going to be that thing.
Okay,
right?
So since I streamed this in my living room today, and this was my introduction to the Scream franchise, I think very obvious. First of all, the whole shtick, the whole famous thing about Scream is how terrifying the landline is. So, not for nothing, but I'm in here wondering, all right, well, okay, so landline, and now you can lock all the doors in your house with your phone. I'm just saying you have to mix it up a little bit. But it was fun. It was really on the nose in terms of how they started it out. It was just like, oh, poor Drew Barrymore. And then, I know. And how are they going to, kind of where are they going to take this and why? And then from there, it kind of got fun to see how this new generation of, how these movies are filtered through sort of a Gen Z lens. And I'm the mother of a Gen Z person who never lets me forget how long ago the 90s were.
I was born in 2000.
I don't know. Let's get into the part of what did you like about it?
It's clever. I mean, they're always really cleverly written. Just the dialogue is always, there's a lot of dialogue. At some parts it gets really, and this was kind of my beef with the original Scream too. Stop talking. Y'all talk too much. There's a lot of speech making and a lot, I could do with a little less than that. But it is fun and cleverly written. There were a few callbacks to kind of hey, Kevin Williamson. I won't tell you where they are, but pay attention. Also enjoyed the way they worked in the legacy characters.
Yeah.
That could have been, and maybe even should have been, really contrived. The whole thing is really kind of contrived from the jump. The whole concept comes in contrived. But I thought it was fun the way they worked in the legacy characters, and they're even sort of self-aware about the legacy characters' relationships to each other, David Arquette and Courtney Cox.
Yeah. And I was really curious on how that was going to work out, especially since they're divorced but they kept it very professional, and you still wanted to root for them, and I mean, I believe that, there was still a lot of care there between both of them, and they played that very, very well. To be honest with you, it's not their story. It's actually, they have a different, there's a different lead in this film, and it's their story, and the legacies are just kind of help push the story along, I guess you could say. What do you think?
I was, I get distracted by weird things. One of the things that I noticed throughout, though, was how much of a different story it wasn't. I mean, like, everything kind of seemed to be sort of, don't you know the rules of how this movie works? And it's like, yes, I do. I mean, yes. So, and then, of course, we start getting into places where, if I go too much into it, it will just ruin it for all of you. And I'm not here to do that, but I will say that, the whole conceit of don't you know how the stab movies work was carried through pretty faithfully throughout.
Yes, I thought so too, and I wasn't sure if they were going to do that. If this was, this is just Scream. It's not Scream 5, or at least that's not how it's titled. So I wasn't sure if they were going to stick with that. The stab films, which are kind of hokey, in the original Scream films. Like each sequel, they would talk about a stab movie or something different, or going out of Woodsboro into Hollywood. And it just kind of became a joke of itself. It wasn't scary. At least it didn't scare me. Entertaining, yes, but it's just and that's kind of how this was. Like they actually, mentioned stab in the film, and so for me, that part of it just kind of pulled me back into the originals when I was like, oh yeah. I guess I was kind of wondering if the tone was going to be grittier, if it was going to be darker, a little bit more serious, I guess. But, like I said before, the aesthetic of it, everything was bright, it's clean, it's very studio-like.
It's perky.
Very perky. It's a
perky slasher flick.
Perky slasher flick. Did it scare you at all?
I wouldn't go right to scare. Although there was, I'm not going to tell you what it was, but there was one time which I was concerned. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that. But I mean, it was just fun. It was entertaining. I wouldn't say I was particularly scared. And as you noted, all you have to do is know the rules, y'all. And how this thing is going to shake out. And if something happens differently, somebody just yells, new rule. Yeah. So, it's helpful to know the rules and then also just forget them. I will say this, and I never used to be much of a horror fan, and, started watching more and more horror films, and the ones that I'm really a fan of are the slower burns and the, there's a kind of a darkness or like family dynamics mixed in, or there's a subtlety about it. Or
this film did not scare me one bit, but it was entertaining for sure.
I think it has to be said that this is a new Scream for kind of a new generation, and sort of these, bringing in younger characters and stuff like that. You definitely see some conventions that, that they maybe weren't as concerned about when they made slasher films in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. A huge diversity in the characters. Now you have, kind of you have a lot of female protagonists. The legacy characters, of course, Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox are back and killing it, but you've also got, this new young, really diverse cast. And, you can definitely, it's very of the moment in that way.
But yeah, I thought the performances did pretty well. There's some things about the film like I didn't really care for. I thought it was a little rushed, and I thought they were pushing a lot pretty quickly, and there really wasn't a whole lot of time to embrace like when we talk about the legacy characters. I wish there would have been a little bit more of more sentiment, I guess.
You had to get it all in.
Yeah, you had to get it all in, and they moved fast with it, and I really, me being older and seeing the other films, I'm a big fan of Dewey's. I love Dewey in the first, 3 films that I saw. And so, he's been through a lot, and the introduction of Dewey's character, which we all know he's in the film, we see him in the poster and the trailer. I wish it was a little bit more build up to that, and the same thing with Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox. I wish there was a little bit more of a, more of that, but that's, at least they could have done that, and then let everybody else have their story, I guess. I don't know.
I agree. In the 30 minutes between the time that the credits rolled on the original Scream and the time that we got here, I developed a real fondness for Dewey, and he means so much to all of us.
He does. I like Dewey.
So, so Scream, what's the final word on this?
Thumbs up or how many stars? How many stars? Like, how many stars would you give this Scream?
Oh, God. I'm going to give this out of what? Out of 100? Out of what? 5?
Out of 5.
5 stars? Let's give it a 3.5.
3.5? Okay. You give it 3.5. I would give it a solid 3. Solid 3. Not a perfect film, but it was fun. Yeah.
You just don't care about Dewey like I do.
You have a point.
So, so thank you guys for being here with us. Most importantly, thank you, Philip, for inviting us to be here. And big fan of the show. We made in Arkansas. We every week, whenever we see a new episode come on, we make sure that we share that onto our Facebook page. So initial reaction there on Facebook for Tavern Talk, and then Made in Arkansas is what we're doing. I'm Johnnie Brannon. I'm a filmmaker here, and you can find me at JB Filmwork on Facebook, and then Kerri.
And be sure to follow the progress on our short film, The Book Club. You can follow us on The Book Club on Facebook, or you can check out our Indiegogo campaign. And keep up with the book club. And thanks so much for checking us out on Initial Reaction. Be sure to like and subscribe to get great content. Every time a new movie comes out, they are on it. Thank you so much for being with us today.
What's up? There's the outro.
There's the outro.
Yeah.